Fantastic. Good morning, everybody. This is Doug, and you're listening to What's the Hazard? It is Friday, October 20th. It's going to be a beautiful day here in Omaha, Nebraska. 80 degrees, man. We've had a little taste of fall so far. The leaves are starting to turn. Nice and cool. I love those cool, crisp mornings. Little sunshine. We've had a little bit of moisture, but today's going to be a nice, warm, beautiful Friday. So.
It is indeed.
I hope where you are, you're having a great day and you had a good week. My guest this morning is an old friend of mine. We've been friends for probably 10, 15 years. I have no idea. I don't even...
20
years. Yeah. Time is just such a weird artifact at this point. I don't even really, But Mark Cain, Drake Williams Steele... I'm going to let him give you the title because your title is more than 2 words, and that always throws me off. But
yeah, Structural Division Production Operations Manager.
Right. So, but you have a heavy background in operations, safety, quality, all of the components that go into actually running a business effectively.
Yep.
You do all those things, man, which I think is really interesting and very unique. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I think, like always, I'd just kind of love to hear your origin story, man. You're from Oklahoma.
Yep.
I've found out. Yeah, man. So if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about, where you're from, how you came to be in this world.
Yeah. And
not necessarily like in this world, but in this safety thing that we do. I understand how that happens.
Right. So I was born and raised in Oklahoma on a farm.
Yeah, nice.
So my dad worked for a farmer, and so I got to learn a lot about chopping cotton and running combines and hauling hay and plowing fields and did all that. And then he went out on his own and bought a couple of dozers. And
your father?
Yep. So my dad went out, and so he started his business and had 2 bulldozers and a grader and a scraper and a whole bunch of other equipment and learned how to run that. And
so how old are you running that stuff? You're like 12? Are we talking about 15?
Yeah, 12. Well, so I was chopping cotton when I was 10 on the farm. My first real job helping him, I was 11 and was pulling roots, mesquite roots. And so he's got this big dozer with this big plow on it and drags. And so my job was to go pull all these roots out of the ground. And so I ran dozers, tractors at a little bit younger age, but ran dozers at 12, 13. And so did that for a few years and graduated high school. And he said, hey, here's the deal. I'll give you 3 options. Option 1 is I'll give you half the business, and you can work for me. Option 2 is you can go to college, and I'll help you as much as I can. Or option 3, you do your own thing, and you got to figure it out on your own, right? And so I ran hard and fast with option number 2. Went to college, moved out of Southwest Oklahoma, and moved up into the Oklahoma City area, Edmond area. Okay. Yeah, and so went to school up there. Got a Bachelor's of Science and a Master's of Education in Industrial Safety from University of Central Oklahoma. In the meantime, I met my lovely wife.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I was, while I was going to school, I was in some grocery stores. We had a large grocery store chain down there. And so was running those as an acting store director.
Okay. So you started on the operations side.
Yep.
You were running things.
Yep. And so Baker Stores bought us. Bought our grocery stores down there. And that's where I met my wife. She came down as the HR person for the division. And so there were 4 or 5 people that came from down there. And so we had to ask Jack Baker if we could date, right? Because you had to do all that. And so Kelly knew him. She actually used to babysit for him. So we started dating, got married. I actually left Baker's and went to work at AWG. So it's the wholesale side of the grocery store business. I wrote ads. So I was in advertising. Okay. Yeah, I was in advertising for about 9 months. My daughter was 4 weeks old. So made a big change there, but wanted to be more involved with being able to be home more. And the resale side of things was a lot of late nights and people calling in and long hours. And so wanted to have a little bit more of a family environment. And so did that with the wholesale side of things.
And where were you living at this time?
I'm in Edmond still.
Okay.
And then she got a call that said Baker's is selling the stores and I'm moving back to Nebraska. You're more than welcome to come where you can stay. And so the paperwork said, hey, you're a trailing spouse. And I moved to Omaha and that's where it started. Very humbling experience. Baker's offered me a job back in the store at 3 levels down lower. But it was a job, right? And so it was something I was very familiar with and worked my way back up. And then 2001, I left and went to work for Lozier.
Lozier, yeah.
Yep. So it was a safety professional for them for for 4 or 5, almost 5 years.
So was that where you were officially first back in safety? I mean, you're always in safety if you're in operations, but officially your first safety job was with Lozier. Good outfit. Probably a lot of
Lozier's great outfit. Yeah, my first year there, they were doing a VPP renewal.
Oh,
and so I got to do a full scale.
Is that where we met?
Mm-hmm. It was, yeah. So I got to do that. And
yeah, man. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Wow, to actually see how a good program runs is a unique opportunity.
It is. Lozier had a great safety program and overall a good company. And in fact, when I went to work for Drake, about 7 years later, I obviously had a lot of their stuff that I knew and just kind of built a program around what they had already had. And so just kind of started from there.
And so you came into Drake Williams in a safety capacity or more of an operations
I did.
capacity?
So at Lozier, I was there about 5 years in the safety role. And then I slid into production, got to miss in that operation side of things. And so I slid into a production operations role there as a supervisor. And, I tell people the day that I became a better safety professional was the day that I became a production supervisor, right? And I was able to walk in their shoes and understand their challenges. And, you've got safety coming at you, you got quality coming at you, you got operations coming at you, you got HR coming at you. And then you got people going, I don't think my life is good today. And they have feelings,
Right.
And everybody gets, a lot of stuff coming at them. And so you really it forced me to step back and take a completely different approach on how I wanted to handle safety, moving forward.
When it's not your exclusive focus.
Correct.
And that is a really interesting comment because for those of us whose sole focus is safety, we start to believe that it is the most important thing. Right. And we all love that mantra. Right. Who can argue with the mantra safety first? But the reality is it's just a combination of everything that can't be separated, but it's not really like you can just set one of those elements apart. It's just work, right? We're doing work. And so all of those things have to be a part of it. So I think that is really a unique perspective to be able to, I always thought, when I was with OSHA, I always thought it would be helpful if OSHA compliance people had some previous construction or industrial experience so that they can weigh those things.
Yeah. I look at it, a little bit differently to your point. When you get somebody that's in that safety role, they want to come in and really focus on the safety. And what really people need to understand is how do you have safe production, right? And how do you get that? How do you get the luxury of being able to take an employee that says, I don't want to do this because I feel unsafe, and be able to have a conversation with them and maybe pull a team of people together and say, hey, what do we need to do to minimize or eliminate all the hazards, and what can we do to help you feel more comfortable, right? And so really looking at that, and too many times I think that the safety professionals that don't have some of that experience, I think they miss that. And so really one of the things that I really try to make sure we put out there is safe production. Let's focus on that, because as soon as we have that employee to do that now, he feels safe or she feels safe. Back that up and say, well, go ahead and do that because we know it's safe. Then they're going to say, well, production obviously is king, and you don't really think about safety that much. And so really just looking at that.
That's really critical, man.
Yeah, just looking at that aspect of it.
And you have quality experience as well.
I do.
So you're kind of coming at it from all these different directions.
Yeah. So so back to your question with Drake. So came on with Drake as a safety and training coordinator, did that for a few years, and then took on quality and really took more of a holistic risk approach, because we build stuff that if it fails in the field, it's a bad, it's saturated.
Can you talk a little bit about what Drake does for those people that don't know Drake Williams?
Yeah, so we build structural steel. We also have some railroads. We do some miscellaneous metals. So the ballpark in town, that's our steel. We don't erect it, but, we supply it. We don't forge anything. We just bring it in and we cut it, we weld it, we drill holes in it, basic fabrication. We've got some steel in the top of the Atlanta Falcon Stadium.
No shit.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, and so we do some hospitals. Colorado's a big market for us and stuff like that.
Big stuff, though.
Yeah, we do big stuff.
You go into your facility, and one of the first things that becomes very obvious is it's big.
Yeah.
The buildings are big.
Yeah.
The materials are big. Yeah. It is much different than a lot of industrial settings that I go into.
It is. And the cool thing about our place is we have, you look at the big stuff we do, but we also do the small, pretty stuff, right? So we consolidated our areas 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6, and we can do stairs and countertops and handrail, and so we really build the neat stuff too. So the structural side of things is all the core and the big, but now we're really good at how do we build the small things, the pretty stuff inside and stuff, and so it's really neat to see what comes out of our shop.
Last time I was down at your facility, it's been a few years ago. We did some sampling and you were showing me a spiral staircase that one of your guys was fabricating, which, must be incredibly difficult to do a spiral staircase that is going to then fit into the allocated space in a building. Oh my God.
Yeah, that measurements aren't necessarily always right when we get them.
Right.
So field measurements are critical, and then, a good hammer every
really elaborate. You must have some real craftsmen.
Yeah, we have some really talented people. We have some really talented people. It's excited to watch nothing turn into something pretty cool. It really is.
It's amazing. And so now you're in the production side.
Yep.
You are a production manager.
Yep.
But obviously that background in safety, the background in quality, as you said, it all lends itself to being a good production manager.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, again, when you look at the whole risk and then you step back and you say, hey, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing, and really Drake is a really good company, because too many times people talk about, well, I want to be OSHA compliant. Well, no, we want to do the right thing because it's the right thing. Right. You know what I mean? And so I've been blessed and fortunate enough to work for a couple of companies that they really support it, and they get it and they support it, right? We want to put our money where our mouth is. And so I've been fortunate to be able to be a part of a company that does that. And so there are times that you have to back up and regroup. Employees want to do the right thing. The majority of them do. And sometimes that is maybe the wrong thing. And so you got to say, hey, Doug, stop, hold on here a second.
Well, they're being paid to get product out the door, right? Exactly. And so that's what they're focused on for the most part.
And so, our job is to make sure, what I really want to focus on is making sure that our leadership team sets the culture, right? They drive the culture. We drive the quality, whatever leadership makes a priority, then that's obviously what the shop does, right? And so, but really look at how does our supervisors lead the safety programs and the quality programs and that culture, and then how do they continue to push that down to the employees? So that way it's just a part of everybody's nature instead of just the manager said you got to do this, right?
Right. So my buddy Aaron was on last week. We were talking about sustainability, and you and I talked about this at breakfast. Yep. The way that you structure your management system has a big impact on the sustainability piece, because you and I have both seen situations where there is a safety manager who's responsible for safety, and when that safety person is not available, it's not being driven the same way. But that's not the way that you guys have things set up. Talk about what your structure looks like.
So to the sustainability thing, we the last couple of years that I was doing this role, we started seeing, hey, we're missing some things here, and so that's why we reached out to you guys, and one of your team, your group, one member of your group came out and said, hey, I can do some new orientations for you, and that's really kind of where you got to see Drake and stuff like that. And so Doug came out and did some things, and then we made an offer to a couple of employees, or a couple of gentlemen to come work for us. And Ben's been great, and so, but we really, when that happened, I wanted to make sure that our team understood that we set the culture, and the safety person, they were the resource, right? And it was our job to ensure that we are driving policies, we are driving procedures, we're engaging with our employees, and really making sure everybody understands that it starts with the supervisors, right? And they're the ones that set the tone. And again, too many times, when you go into new, safety professionals come into a place, well, you're now the doer, right? And so we really need to decide, am I the doer, or am I going to be kind of managing the processes? And how do I become a resource versus a doer? When you're new, you're going to be a doer anyway. You know what I mean? But it's hard not to be. It's hard not to be, right? Yeah. You want to be engaged, and you want to be part of the team. And I was telling my wife, last night we were talking, I said, really kind of the safety guys, and sorry, ladies, but the safety professionals,
sure,
they're in a bad spot because they really don't fit in the production team, and they're not necessarily part of the HR team. They're really not. And so sometimes they feel like they're on an island by themselves.
I would agree.
And so So she goes, so how do you fix that? And I said, well, what I did and what Ben did is you partner with your maintenance guy, because nobody, that's the worst job in the shop.
Right.
And so misery loves company.
Right.
And so
that's true.
But what happens when you partner with your maintenance team, now all of a sudden you really understand, because your maintenance guys are out there in it, right? There, your maintenance team's out there. So now you get, you get an ally in your maintenance team and really lean on that. But then outside of that, you've got to have those relationships. You've got to start building relationships with those leaders, because if not, you're going to be fighting them, and you just want to come do this safety thing because. And it's no, how can I build it in the process? How can I work with you to build this into the process? And so it's interesting. It's a challenge.
You've hit on a couple of things that I'd like to go back to, man. There's a lot in there. The first one you had mentioned, this lives or dies kind of at that frontline supervision. How do you? I mean, we talk about this all the time. How does the leadership team engage that frontline supervisor so that they are actually on board with, that they're really believing that, this is important, and it's just not lip service, but get the shit out the door. Right. How do you do that?
So when we made the transition, I was very clear that Ben was a resource, because I didn't want him to get sucked in. And I say Ben, we hired another gentleman as well, but Ben worked for, he was in our shop all the time, and so really was kind of there. And I told him, hey, just make sure you understand you're going to be part of our team. But right now I need to make sure that the supervisors understand that we set the culture, that we drive this. And so I really need you to kind of be behind the scenes a little bit here, and just you and I will continue to do this. And when I come, when we're ready, I think we're all ready to understand how this is going to work as a resource and drive this through, repetition and stuff like that. So I took the leadership team. We started doing audits and stuff that we had never done before. And they're like, well, isn't our safety becoming? I'm like, no, he's not. Right. I'm like, well, this is odd. And I'm like, again, just continue to reiterate this. And then, we did that for about 6 or 7 weeks. And then, okay, Ben, now we're going to be a part of this, and slowly doing that. But in the meantime, I encouraged him to go have one-on-one relationships, build those one-on-one relationships with those supervisors, work with them, understand their business. Because if you want to be successful, you got to understand the business. And that's where I really went back to the day that I became a production supervisor. I became a better safety professional because I understood the business now and really know what that looks like and what that feels like to them. And they'll appreciate that more, and they'll be more receptive and open to you. But you got to build that relationship and understand the business.
That's huge. I think you've touched on something that gets unfortunately overlooked a lot, is understanding the business as a safety person.
That's huge.
You can understand the regulations, but if you don't know your business, you're not going to really be included, and you're not going to have a lot of credibility with the people that are making those decisions. Right. I love that. I like that concept. We're going to start with the supervisory team, and we're going to be out there establishing the culture for our expectations. And then that safety person is just a resource. Correct. I've seen that, and that goes back to that sustainability piece that Aaron was talking about. If the safety manager is the safety program and the safety manager is unavailable, the safety program is unavailable, essentially.
It comes to a halt.
It comes to a halt. That is so important, the way that you structure this. And I still see a lot of situations where the safety guy takes care of that. Right. They take care of safety. Yeah. My job is to get product out the door or to provide the service, whatever that is. And to view that as separate is really a mistake.
It is. You've got to be able to blend those two. That's
really cool, man. So you talked a little bit this morning when we were having breakfast about letting go. You're bringing in these new safety people and the challenge of just letting go. Talk about that a little bit and some of the struggles that.
So that was an opportunity. Had 13 years, at Drake, building the programs and rebuilding the programs and
living the programs.
It was an opportunity. I thought, I can do this. I can bring him in and just, kind of be a coach and we can make this really work. And so found myself watching the change and going, man, I know this is, the new person's job. This is their role, and I expect them to, they want to enhance it and take it to the next level. And but yet I'm sitting here going, that's not what I did.
Right. The owners, I mean, you've developed all these programs. This is your program in large part.
Yeah. So I went to a couple safety committee meetings and found myself wanting to still be overly involved, and went to the last one and sat on my hands. As you can see, I talk with my hands a lot, but literally had to sit on my hands and just, I can't do this. And so stepped back and just went to the young man and said, sorry, I need to step back. I need this to be your program and not mine. And I'm here to coach you and mentor you. And it's both a blessing and a curse, right? Because, like we talked, sometimes a safety professional comes in and they don't have anybody to show them. Give me the history of how we got here.
Yeah, the predecessor has left.
Yeah. And so, which is good and bad. And then you've got, because then you really have a unique opportunity. But then coming behind somebody that has all the knowledge and like you said, lived it, it becomes hard. And so, he's wanting to prove himself, and I'm wanting to let him, but yet I want him to, I did this way, right? And so I stepped back and just, again, continued to let him be a resource and really focus on driving that with the supervisors. And guys, things are going to change. He is, this is their program, and so this is what we're going to do. And he's done an amazing job. I mean, and so have really took the consultant role with him. And allowed just... You
let him come to you if he needs help, or if he's... Obviously, there's a line that you can't allow to be crossed. Right. So as the observer, you have to accept that there's going to be some differences in how he views things, or this person views them from you. Right. Okay, I can be the bigger person and allow that, but then there are lines you just can't allow to be crossed, obviously.
Yeah.
So
and there's times that,
a balance.
It is. There's times that, we're making some decisions and it's like, we're going to do this. And he's like, oh, thank you for taking that. Right. It's like, you're the bad guy now, not me. And so, but that's where we have to be.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, you talk about where's that balance. And there's times that we just step up and say, no, guys, this is what we're going to do. Right. We can talk about it. We can figure it out. But this is what we're going to do because this is the right decision to make. And so, afterwards, he's like, well, thank you, and so,
no doubt.
But he's doing, and it's really a really unique situation.
Man, it's just a game of experience, truthfully.
It is.
I mean, you can do all the education and all of the training, but until you've lived in that facility for a while, it's really hard to really get it.
It is. That's a big facility. I mean,
Oh, it's enormous. And just what are the biggest challenges? Let's talk a little bit about safety specifically. Just, we were talking about structural steel. So you have beams that you guys you're welding on, you're tacking different
plates,
fixtures and plates and things on these things. They're going to go out to a job site for steel erection purposes, but you got to move that stuff around. Yeah. What is the biggest issue, or I guess not the biggest, but talk about things that you have to deal with that the widget guy doesn't deal with. Yeah.
So everything that we make is custom. Right now, people say, well, you do 5,000 beams a year or 6,000 or 10,000, whatever, pick a number. While we cut that many or we process that many, when we go to put the other stuff on it, it all becomes custom, right? And so I did some time studies on a plate. I wanted to see how many times that we had to touch or move or roll or something along this line, because really want to look at, how do you incorporate a lean concept into your safety, quality, and production programs? And so I monitored this plate when it came in. So from the first time we took it off the truck until it got back on the truck to leave our parking lot, that piece of plate got moved 34 times, whether it was rolled, flipped, touched, cut, ground. And so we move so much material, whether it be forklift or overhead crane, that it's insane. And so just the overall handling of the material is really our biggest issue.
And what is, describe a beam?
Oh, a beam could be...
The dimensions and the weight and stuff. So, what's a typical beam?
We could probably, if you did a 21 by 85 or 21 by 99, 30 foot long. And so what that means is 21 inches wide. It weighs 100 pounds per linear foot. So the first number is the width. The second number is going to be the weight per linear foot. And then 30 foot, 40 foot, 60 foot. We're building some big trusses right now, and they're going to end up being 90-something foot long by the time we assemble them together. And so it's pretty cool.
And it has to move through the facility.
Yeah, that's the opportunity, right? And so
remarkable.
It is.
But it's cool.
It is way cool. We built some
very
good stuff.
Cool. And I've always envied people that can drive by the ballpark and say, that's our stuff, man. That's our stuff. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is.
So What you mentioned earlier that you became a better safety person the minute you had operational responsibilities. This is something that I look back on my career and think, you know, I would have been a much better compliance officer had I had some exposure to the management side, knowing what legal sufficiency is, knowing what obstacles you have working with the attorneys and the solicitors and all those things. You know, that hindsight is really helpful. What's knowing the business, that was the part of it that was most useful to you, understanding what the objectives were. And
you know, really understand the objectives.
And then how does that affect your decision making?
Correct. Yeah. So when you look at that, I mean, again, go back to when you're in the operation side of things, there are so many things that are coming your way, right? And so it's very easy to sit in an office and go, okay, send the email that says, supervisors, I want you to do this. And like this too, right? And so what I found is that going down, but after I was a supervisor, it was, hey, safety person, come out here, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what you're wanting, right? Let's establish the objectives for your desire, and then let's talk about how does that impact what takes place out here on the floor, because that's where it happens, and that's where it happens. And so as I started doing that and really having those conversations with the individual that took my place at Lozier, it was really a benefit to both of us, right? Because we were just both had the opportunity to look at it differently. And so as you do that, you learn those things and all the challenges that come along with being in operations, right? And whether it's people calling in sick or they don't feel good today or fill in the blank, right? I don't have enough people and we're working on day 6 and, you know, everybody's tired and, you know, things happen, right? And so really getting that and coming back and stepping back and saying, okay, time out. What pause do we need to put on here to make the process better? And so really it opened my aperture of, from a safety person and a safety professional, as I expand and really look at this just slightly different, what can I do? And so from an operations side, that's really the approach I take is, well, hold on a second, we're doing this and this is just, I don't like where this is going. I don't like the feel of this, right? And just start really paying attention to what you're seeing and let's put a pause here. Let's back up and regroup. And that's really what we try to do. And the supervisors now are coming and really understanding that as well too. And they're saying, hey, this just doesn't quite feel right. And so they're buying it, they're doing it. And that's really the
really
neat
big,
part.
man.
Oh, that's huge.
That is really big. I'm impressed by that because you said earlier, again, I'm trying to unpack all the things you've said, but you've said we're trying to figure out a way to make our product as safely as possible rather than just be compliant. And there is this obsession with compliance. And I blame OSHA to some degree. They force us, and being compliant is important. I would never suggest otherwise, but being compliant isn't the objective.
Correct.
Right?
It's not.
And so, like you just said, that operations experience, okay, we're on day 6 of a project where we're understaffed. We've had a few people call in or whatever that case might be, and how that affects our ability to do this work as safely as possible. Are we going to have to do it differently on day 6 than we did it on day 1? And
so let's back up and regroup. What does that look like?
And then the conversations that you're having. You know, you bring that safety resource in and say, we have to do this with these circumstances. How do we do it as safely as possible? Can we? Or do we stopping? I mean, can we proceed? That's a totally different world than the checklist compliance guy. Which is.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a C program, then you just do compliance. And again, everybody has a job to do, and there's a reason for everything, right? When you talk about the OSHA group and stuff, but our job is to be better than that because we want to make sure our employees understand we want to be better than that.
Right, and as you mentioned earlier, again, the consequences of your not being on the top of your game can be seen downstream in catastrophic outcomes.
When you look at it, when we look at risk, we look at not only the risk, look at it holistically. You have the safety, you have the quality, and that is, putting out a good quality product in an efficient, safe manner, obviously, because things fail in the field, right? And then we also look at risk of reputation, and how do we make sure that all 3 of those are at a level that is very high, right? And how do we protect all 3 of those? You obviously have employees and those types of things, but I incorporate that into your safety. But look at that reputation, right? Somebody gets hurt, all of a sudden, you're a company that you have a lot of bad accidents. That's a bad reputation. You get, hey, they have a bad quality effects in the field or something bad happened out there, right? that's a bad reputation. And so what do we do to really drive that and protect all three of those in a manner that again is at a high level? You know, obviously integrity is part of that. You know, we want to do the right thing because it's the right thing.
Because it's the right thing. Yeah. Talk a little bit about, again, I found this really interesting. I enjoyed your story earlier about a job interview. And this is obviously prior to Drake Williams, because you would never look for a job now, of course. Right. But prior to that, you were being interviewed for a job, and they were one of those zero incidents companies, and talk about that a little bit. I thought that was fantastic.
So, while I was interviewing before I came to Drake, I went on an interview, and we were walking through the shop, and the individual was like, yeah, we have a zero accident mentality. I'm like, oh, okay. And on paper, it sounds great. Sure. In conversation, man, it's amazing. Want to be there, love to be there. We all do. In reality, I struggle with that because I just don't see it being possible. We want to do everything we can to get as close to it. And so I was talking to the gentleman, and I said, that machine right there. And he's like, yeah. I said, you service it pretty good, right? Oh, yeah, we service it all the time. That machine's got to run. Does it ever break down? And he's like, well, yeah, it's broke down before. I said, okay. I said, well, you drive to work, right? And he's like, yeah. I said, your car ever left you stranded? You know, battery, go on the fritz, flat tire? Yeah. I said, okay. I said, those two pieces of equipment or those two machines are designed to run all the time and do everything, correct? Yes. I said, God made this human pretty unique. I said, if you have machines and cars that are designed to run all the time, and yet they still break down, and you have a person that you don't know what's going on with them, right? That mentally, I'm not here today, or what does this look like? They're going to make a mistake. They're going to do something wrong, and that accident's going to happen.
It is inevitable.
It is inevitable. I said, so our job as safety professionals and also your leaders is to figure out, how do I catch that before something happens, right? How do I hear that machine is making a bad noise and know I need to service it? How do I see that battery is, starting to turn over before it leaves me stranded? How do I understand that employee's, he's not with it today, right? I've looked in his eyes, or I looked in her eyes, and she's just not quite there, or I can just going through the motions that something's not right, or maybe they're sick today, right? And so, but they can't afford to take off because if I miss another day, I might get terminated, right? How do you work past that? I said, and expect that human to be able to do that job without getting hurt.
Like machine efficiency.
It's not going to happen. And, well, we're getting close to it. Well, that's great. I appreciate that. Obviously, I didn't get that job,
which I love.
Right, but yet it was real. It was, hey, I appreciate where you're going, and that's a great message. It's a great message. Sure, it is, and all of us are preaching it right now. But reality is, humans break down just like other things, and our job as leaders and safety professionals is to figure out how we can do that. How we can catch that before that happens. How do we engage with our employees? One of the things that we're doing. One of our strategic goals is engagement. And so we backed up and put a plan together to where our supervisors are actually out engaging with our employees on a daily basis. They're required to go do that. And then we put a log together and said, we want you to monitor what you guys talk about. Why? Get out in front of them and just to check on them. There's a whole bunch of reasons for it. But man, if I look at you in the eyes, Doug, and you're just not with it today, that can cause me to have a pause. You're talking about stuff that, man, he's really not or she's really not focused today. That's going to give me a pause. So we need to have a different conversation. And so it's really been a good thing holistically for what we're doing. But that engagement thing is
Who is doing that? You're asking your supervisors to be doing that?
Our supervisors are doing that on a daily basis.
Wow, that is so important, man. You said something else that just really resonated with me, man. My God, there's a lot going on here. And it is so hard to... People don't appreciate how hard it is to podcast. Because you're saying so many things that I find interesting that it elicits a question. Right. And I have a bad habit of interrupting, so I try not to do that. Ahead. But the question that, I'm like, oh my God, what did he just say there? You mentioned, I see this all the time. I talk to operators that refuse to wear hearing protection because they want to hear their machine. Right. But you've got to hear your employees too. That's a T-shirt or something, I think, isn't it, man? I mean, because that is so critical. And the fact that you're out there doing these just check-ins, however you refer to that plan, I think that is so important. And the vast majority of people don't do that. Right. I've said this many times as a safety consultant. I don't have the luxury of knowing the company or the employees well. I'm only there briefly.
Right.
If periodically that would be, and so I spend time talking with the employees. Just sometimes it almost seems trivial or whatever, but just to open up a line of communication, let someone feel comfortable. And I know that the people that are paying me are standing back there saying, when is he going to start doing some safety stuff, damn it? Do some safety stuff. And I'm like, this is safety stuff. This is how you get to the...
This is going to get you somewhere.
Yeah. I think it's overlooked again. Just that basic communication is overlooked. So how did you guys structure this? You said you're asking your guys to do this on a daily basis.
Yeah. So...
is it becoming easier for them?
It is. And in fact, now, for the first probably 60 days, we had them to come back and document it. I put this together and basically put 6 or 7 categories to talk about. Hey, if there's nothing to talk about the job, talk about the weather, talk about something, click other, and then you guys talk about it. And one guy's like, yeah, this guy that works for me, he went to Okoboji, and he loves going to Okoboji. So that's their thing now, right? That's their deal. They talk about Okoboji and stuff. And so, but whatever that is, want them to get comfortable enough again to direct all those. If I've got a safety concern, I want to direct it to my supervisor. If I've got an HR concern, I want to direct it to my supervisor. If I got a quality concern, I want to direct it to my supervisor, right? And really just establish that relationship, because when you look at the engagement of what that does, and go back, and I'll kind of go sideways a little bit here. My wife said, whatever you do, don't go sideways. But
of course.
But look at a safety professional that's coming in, right? Because what happens is the employee has an issue. He goes to the safety person. Safety person says, okay, I'll go talk to the supervisor. Safety person comes to the supervisor. Doug, hey, this happened, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Here's what happened, yada, yada, yada. So then the safety person comes back here, then he goes back to the employee. Then all of a sudden we play this game. And in reality, the safety professional really can't do much about it, because the supervisor and the management team are going to be the ones that's going to make the changes with the input of the safety person.
Right.
And so my first response as a safety person was always, did you talk to your supervisor? Did you talk to your supervisor? Did you let them know that this is a problem? Right. Because they can fix it immediately to where I can't. So that engagement that we're doing, so circling the wagon here and coming back, is that engagement that we're doing is really driving that to really have that relationship with the supervisor, so they feel comfortable bringing any issue to them.
Right. Eliminate those extra steps.
It is.
We can get mitigation much more quickly and efficiently. And there's things lost in the translation occasionally.
It is. Because what's going to end up happening is all three of you are going to end up meeting, because the supervisor is going to come to the employee and say, hey, here's this. And then it's just, it really is. And so it took a little bit to do that. And we don't do it.
And some do it better than others,
obviously. Right. And so some employees really buy into it, and others are like, I'm just going to go to the safety person. I don't care. I'm just going to go to the safety person.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll figure that out.
If that's what you're most comfortable with, let's do that.
Let's do that. So,
but hopefully this will make them more comfortable with that. The step going directly to the supervisor.
And it really has. And, we continue to emphasize that, hey, our safety professional has a lot on their plate right now. And so we are going to continue to own more and more and more, and really reemphasize the fact that they are a resource. And so we have our weekly team meetings, and we talk to that with our employees. I said, guys, here's the deal. Our safety professional is taking on some different responsibilities. And so we want to make sure that we're handling it through our safety committee members, through our supervisors. If that doesn't work, to me, through my counterpart, Sean, and stuff like that. And so, and then obviously we'll get our safety professionals involved if need be.
So you have a lot of avenues for this engagement piece,
we do.
It sounds like,
which
is really critical. And I think in the last few years, there has been a lot more conversation about engagement. We always used to say employee involvement.
Right.
Well, the employees are always involved.
They're always involved.
If they're there, they're involved, but they're not engaged necessarily. That takes a concerted effort, truthfully, to get them engaged. So it sounds like you have a lot of different opportunities for that engagement, all being driven by that frontline supervisor.
Correct. Yeah, the only thing that we do, we started doing roundtable meetings with all our employees. So once a quarter, we have about 107 meetings with all of our employees, and so bring them in groups of 4 or 5, and we don't have the supervisors involved, and we just let them talk.
God,
so we
shit.
Oh yeah, we do
100 meetings.
Yeah, and we packed. So the first time we strung it out, and the second time we jammed them in about 3 weeks, and it was. Holy buckets, there's a lot of stuff, right? And so, but we just wanted to continue to drive that to say, hey, if you don't feel comfortable talking to your supervisors, it's the ability to talk to the leaders of the shop,
right?
And so, so Sean and I have these meetings, and we break it apart, and this time, I changed the format a little bit. So the first time it was like, blah, they write everything and anything. But there's safety issues, there's quality issues, there's production issues, there's facility issues, right?
HR issues, all sorts of.
And so, but this time broke it up and communicated back immediately. Hey, we had, communication still. It was we had 27 people talk about it, and we're putting in some new machines, and so about 45 questions came from this. And so really broke it out and sent that out to our leadership, to our supervisors, as well as actually our HR department, our COO and or CFO, and Derek's the president as well. Sent that out to those guys to say, hey, here was the feedback that we got this time and did this. And so it's really been good. I mean, it really
you're getting useful feedback at this point.
You really are.
And you're doing this quarterly.
We're doing it quarterly.
Holy shit!
Tell me about it.
You stop doing one and you start the next quarter.
Yeah, right. And that's basically what it is. And so, so we really try to take some of the big picture things and address those the best we can. And so, but we're really trying to focus on engagement and giving those employees every possible avenue. Some people call it voice of employees. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and he's like, "Yeah, voice of employee." I'm like, "Okay, that's a great catchphrase, whatever you want to call it." But how do we engage our employees and really looking? I mean, and so we've really been focusing on this this last 6 months, and it's been 7 months now, and it's been really good.
Have they revealed to you a few things that you had no idea about?
Yeah, there's some things that caught us off guard, and it's like, really, why is that? Because we, and there's some things that we thought we were doing pretty decent. And they're like, yeah, we're still not, right? And you're going to get one or two of those people, but okay, it sounds like we need to enhance.
But more than just a disgruntled employee, you find a few. Oh wow, that's really an opportunity for us to improve.
Yep, let's jump on that.
There's a lot of gold in there, man. If you're willing to go mine it out.
Yep.
Which is it's not always easy.
It's not easy.
Sometimes it's like. You're like, damn, I've really dropped the ball here. I mean, you have to be willing to... you got to be thick-skinned and be able to take it. And but that's so important, man.
And so we incorporate that. And so, on our weekly meetings, we have a weekly production meeting, and our safety professional is there. And so we sit through that and we talk through, hey, these are the things that came out of this, and, we need you to address this and look at this, or can you go get some information on this? Again, utilize that as a resource, and comes back. And so, we do that. And it's been a challenge at times, but it's been good. It's been exciting.
Awesome, man. That was very exciting. There's so much going on, man. But that engagement piece has really taken center stage.
Yeah,
I mean, people are starting to realize the importance of that. It's been talked about, and some of the new modern safety thinkers write about it and stuff like that. I've been trying to employ that with a lot of my clients, and it truly makes a difference. I hope everybody takes that to heart.
Yeah. We have one guy, we transitioned our supervisors. I'm really big into, I want you to learn the other person's business, right? And so I shift the supervisors around a little bit, and we talk through what would you like to do and get some goals. And so we moved some people around, and so we moved some people around, and this guy came up to him and goes, why don't you ever come talk to me? I was used to you seeing me on a daily basis. You never come see me anymore. What happened? Right. And so it must be working, right? And,
absolutely.
And so so another employee said, wow, really feel like with what these supervisors are doing, whatever you guys are doing, this is really helping, right? And so I know.
Good. The employees are noticing it.
Yeah, the employees are noticing it.
Oh, that's the most important part, right?
It is.
Once they realize this is real and they start to see some change, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
This is awesome, man.
Yeah.
So what do you do in your free time?
Yeah, no, right.
Do you have any free time? I mean, you've obviously got a wife and family. You got life outside.
Yeah, like anybody else, we got life outside of here. We.
What do you like to do?
So.
You still hunting and fishing and stuff?
I hunt.
I mean, if you're a kid from Oklahoma, you're an outdoor guy.
Yeah, so I'm an outdoor guy. We've got a place out on a small lake, and so my wife and I love to spend time out there. Our oldest daughter lives in Galveston. My son's in the Navy, and so so he's getting ready to be deployed. We don't know yet where. He's signed up for another 3 years.
Yeah.
So he's in that.
Thanks to him.
No, it's pretty exciting. He's in Mississippi and got a granddaughter there. My oldest daughter lives in Houston, and so we go down to Galveston quite a bit. We love going to Galveston area and stuff like that. And she's a gymnastics coach. She just went to New Amsterdam and did coached a team over there. And
oh my God,
so it's
that's
great.
Very exciting. They're doing well.
Yeah, middle daughter is she's coaching gymnastics as well, but going to nursing school. And my youngest daughter's in high school, and so I chase.
How many kids was that? 12?
Yeah, no, right. Luckily, only 4.
Okay, 4.
But there are times that's a lot. So my wife and I, we love going out to her place out in North Bend and just hanging out and, listen to all kinds of jazz or whatever on the pontoon and just kind of take a slow ride around. And
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the pontoon. Yeah. I'm not a speedboat guy anymore. I don't like that noisy lake scene. I like that Nice, lazy pontoon lake. Maybe have a cocktail if that's your thing.
Glass wine, whatever it is.
Maybe not if it's not your thing, but I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so that's
you kind of need that to decompress a little bit.
You really do. And the good thing is it's only about, with the construction out there right now, it's 45 minutes door to door. Prior to that, it was 38 minutes door to door. It's an hour from work, and so it's really, that's what we do. We make sure we focus on the family, and then we do that. But I try to go to Oklahoma as much as I can and go down and hunt and spend some time with my mom and my sister, my nephew down there.
I spent time in Oklahoma. I did some schooling in Oklahoma. Loved it. We mentioned, when I got back from 4 years of Oklahoma, I was a little bit slower. Yeah. I mean, not like intellectually, I don't know, perhaps, but it's hard to, but my pace was a little bit slower. I love the pace of Oklahoma. Yep. I actually I said y'all. Yep, right. And the first time you come back to Omaha and you say y'all, they're like, what has happened to you?
Right. Hey, it only takes me a couple of days. I come back and everybody, I was like, I'm right back into it. My wife, she was very glad to come back home. Like I said, she said, you're more welcome to stay or you can come back. And so,
but she was from Nebraska.
Yeah, she's originally from Nebraska. Okay. So, so she's born and raised here. And so,
Oklahoma can be it can be difficult for people that are not from that area. Yeah. It took me a while to, and I was in an academic setting, so it's different anyway. Most of the people there were from out of state, but I did love Oklahoma, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love living down there, but
but things are good here.
They are. They're really good.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, man, we're running up on time. We've got like a minute left. You guys, what's your wish list look like for, your programming at Drake Williams? Without getting into great detail, the strategic, what's the word that you used that you made up?
Stratical.
Stratical.
Yeah, stratical.
Strategic and tactical.
Yeah. So
stratical.
So I was at a meeting here the other day, and so I was telling my wife, I said, I'm surrounded by all these people, and they're big, strategic thinkers, and yet they're talking about stuff that really impacts the tactical side of things. And so, So I said, I came up with this word stratical, and she goes, oh, great, here we go, right? And so, but stratical, and, basically it is like having to make the decision and being able to understand at what 1,000 foot do you need to be communicating at, right? Do I need to be up here with the 30, 40, 50,000 foot people? And if I do, what words and what, phrases do I need to be catching and saying to make sure they understand what our processes are really and how they're impacting our processes down here. And yet, how do I become tactical and get in the weeds down here to be able to say, guys, here's what the plans are.
Right.
And here's what we've got to execute on, and how do we get there? And
that's such an important concept too, man. Knowing at what level, and again, this is not, I think people mistake this for speaking down to people. It's not. But speaking strategically with a certain group who want that 35,000 foot view, and speaking more tactically, the day-to-day stuff, the more detailed stuff, with the people that need those details, that level of detail. Yeah. That is a complicated...
It can be.
World, and you have to deal with those folks because you're dealing with the ownership and the executives, and you're dealing with the employees. And
you got to find that balance.
You have to find that balance. It's interesting.
Yeah.
That's good, man. I've enjoyed our conversation immensely. I hope
I don't know if it was what you wanted or not.
It's exactly what I wanted. It is always what I want, because if no one else, I think people will gain a lot from the conversation. But damn, I learned something every time. I'm incredibly fortunate to have, a group of friends and colleagues that are willing to share this experience. There is nothing more valuable to a new safety person, in my opinion, than hearing from somebody who's lived it and made mistakes and found a better path, perhaps. That is invaluable, man. So thank you for sharing that. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks for listening, guys. I hope you have a great weekend and a good week next week, and we will be back next Friday. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.